which is confidence.
Yes, sir. Yeah, great. Okay, so confidence is really important, and I would argue a lot of people ask me, "Hey, what's the C that you come across the most, especially with youth athletes?" And this is it right here. I actually believe, if I was to extrapolate this, there's a confidence crisis that's going on right now in our country. It's the number one reason why people come to me, because a lot of athletes struggle with their inner belief in themselves, which is what confidence is about, and they struggle with their ability, their confidence in their abilities, that they can actually do it. It has to do with their perception of their competency. And then also beyond self has to do with interpersonal confidence, which is about building rapport and trust, and not only influencing confidence in others, but then actually having confidence be influenced by other people as well too. Especially if you're on a team or your family or your tribe and community, right? Because we're social creatures. So it starts again then building off of that belief system. So if we've done a really good job at the core element, which we talked about, the center, this isn't actually part of the original model, something I built in. The character piece, which I talked about earlier, is the foundational piece, where we talked about values, beliefs, and purpose as part of your identity. Now, once I understand my belief system and what my beliefs are that help me and hurt me, I can now then begin to really build the foundation of my confidence, right? Because that influences the lens in which I see myself and others. So I got to understand beliefs can help us and hurt us. It's like an iceberg effect. They call positive psychology, call them iceberg beliefs. So now when I start to turn those into affirmations that are the anchor into my belief and value system, that really identify who I am, like as a competitor, as an athlete, as a person, as a father, husband, friend, whatever. That's first and foremost. Now I start to be able to then use things like, to my advantage, to understanding, to use psychological momentum in my favor, how I think, how I talk to myself, using the 4 P's of self-talk, right? Is it personal? Is it powerful? Is it purposeful? Is it pervasive, right? So if I can use those things to my advantage, understand what positive thinking looks like, understand what negative thinking looks like, there's neutral thinking looks like. And in any situation, I've got a toolkit of self-talk and affirmations that I could bring to bear and make those a habit. And there's other things that go in there as well too, that are more related to resilience, having to do with, for example, selective perception or the mental filter. So we talk about, amnesia, and how do I, whenever something happens to me that's good, bad, or indifferent, how do I then take what I need, get rid of what I don't, and then take the next best steps, right? That's this idea of selective perception. That's really important as well too. And then the interpersonal confidence is really fascinating because they're really drawn a couple of different sources. One of them is Dr. Paul Zak at Claremont University. He talks about the neuroscience of trust, which I call as the currency of high performing, individuals and teams. And so understanding how oxytocin works, and what is trustworthiness about? How do I train myself to trust myself, which comes from Dr. Bob Rotella, and then how do I then, so my training mindset is bringing skill in, the trusting mindset is letting skill out. Well, then how do I bridge the gap of trust and build rapport with other people, that either on my family, that I work with, that are, on my team, and so on and so forth, right? And that really gets into another piece as well too, which is communication. Communication is the vehicle in which the transaction of trust happens, right? So we think about, trust being, this currency. How do we invest it in ourselves, and how do we loan it to other people with terms? And the way we do that is through how we communicate. So it has to do with everything, really starting with the Moravian model, which has to do with this idea that 55% of how we communicate to build trust has nothing to do with what we say. It's our body language, right? So how do we use things like mirror and matching? How do I use my body language, in terms of how I show up, to be able to communicate with other people? And then and then also determines how people see me. 38% has to do with the tone and tempo, with how I say things, and only 7% has to do with what I actually say. I think once people understand that and are aware of that, they can then start to develop some strategies on how to then better influence other people towards optimal outcomes. And so there's nothing called active or constructive response. This is where another thing that I teach coaches, which is about motivational interviewing, which is about, hey, how do you act? How do you ask really good questions to meet an athlete where they're at, and then to plant the seed to where it becomes their idea, and then where they're taking action with how they think and what they do versus you dictating it to them. So motivational interviewing is a big piece of that as well too, that I bring into that. It's just one of the tools that we bring to bear when it comes to confidence.
What do you think of the statement, you may not always feel confident, but you can always behave confidently?
Yeah, I think, I think that's different than the whole fake it till you make it thing, right? Because I don't believe in the fake it till you make it thing, right? Because I think it's disingenuous. It's a short term strategy. It's a short term tactic that isn't going to lead to a consistent optimal results, right? But I do believe is that it kind of goes back to, again, like, do I have my A game or a C game? So when I don't feel well and I work with an athlete who is not wasn't aware of how his body language starts to telegraph what type of day he's going to have, right? And so by shifting his awareness outside of himself to other people, he's seeing how his body language is reflecting what he's thinking and how he's feeling, and
Mhm.
ultimately how he performs. So just by him understanding about, like, okay, well, his body language is like dejected and his shoulders are slumped and his eyes are down and he's kind of got that resting dick face going on that I tend to have too when I'm concentrating. It's what you're showing is that you're not building trust in others. Like, oh crap, here we go again. This is the bad Andy that's showing up today. Okay, this is what we're going to get. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But sometimes by you, hey, okay, I don't feel great today too, but you know what? I'm gonna walk tall. I'm gonna get big, get my breathing up. I'm gonna smile, right? Just by smiling and changing your body language sometimes can help change your mood, right? So there's as much a physical and physiology, a behavioral thing that can help shift to your attitude and affect your emotions in these situations. So that I do believe in, but if it's disingenuine to you, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, I mean, as an athlete, like some days we just walk in like we have our C game, but what protocols, like you're saying, can I actively make the choice to do? Okay, I can still have big body language. I
Yeah,
can still show up and play hard, and I can run and I can sprint and I can have energy, like as much energy as I have in the tank. And there's
yeah,
those active choices that you can make that help you then turn your feeling of little confidence into, okay, I got a C plus, like I can get to a B maybe. Okay,
yeah,
this is awesome. I'm feeling it a little bit. Now momentum is moving,
yeah,
and like, yeah, that's it. I don't like fake it till you make it either. So
yeah.
that's good.
Nah, and I think that's what people want is people love, because it's interesting. We expect consistency and we want consistency, but it's like this ever moving target, right? It's so, we're, as humans, we're so inconsistent and unpredictable as well too. We're not robots, right? We're not artificial intelligence, right? So it's like, but when people's people can expect, regardless of, hey, they're going to get the same guy like Jokic, right? So it's like, hey, when they know what they're going to get, regardless of how you feel, that's what helps build trust with people,
Mhm.
and that's how you build confidence, right? Because you can sometimes surprise yourself, like you said. Going back to my son the other day too. We talked about getting his mind right, and we kind of went through a mindfulness practice ahead of time, and we had a quick conversation about how he feels, and then I said, hey, well, let's check it afterwards, and let's see. Right now he's like, hey, I got a D. Well, okay, let's see what you give yourself when you're done. And he said he went from a D to a B by the time we went home, right? And so he completely surprised himself and even me by making that shift, right? But all that started, it was very incremental. It was just one thing at a time.
Yeah, that's huge.